So how we doing? Good, good. Glad to see everyone here. It is good to be back in my hometown of Houston. Born and raised here. Also, did not know your proximity to Phyllis Wheatley, so I wore the appropriate colors today. Just in case some folk don't know, these are the colors of the, y'all know the name, I don't even need to say it. The mighty, mighty Jack Yates, celebrating his 100th anniversary this year. There are many schools in Houston, but there's only one Jack Yates. Don't hate. Congratulate, and I might let you celebrate. And again, it is good to be here and to see you folks. I have my sisters here, husband here, my aunts here, my cousins here. My parents are watching the stream, and so glad to be here. I do have to correct Pastor on one thing. He said that we have 1 million folk. No, we actually have 2 million folk. We launched the show 7 years ago, launched the network 4 years ago, and a lot of folk, I remember I was even talking to folks at YouTube, and they were funding a lot of efforts, and they actually said black news would not work. I told them, I said, well, watch us work. And if you look at every week, YouTube puts out their top 100 podcast, and since they started that last year, we have been consistently the only black news show in the top 100. They, a couple of years ago, we were at the Democratic National Convention, and when you reach a certain level, they assign, y'all can take a seat, they assign you your own person. And when we met with them, they said that when they grouped us with all of the other progressive shows, we don't use a progressive label, conservative label, Democrat label, Republican label. Our show is black. And they said that when they grouped us together, we were, in terms of time spent watching per viewer, we were number one against all of those shows. And last year, when we did the State of Our Union, when the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon and con man in chief, that's the label I use, not president. When he spoke to Congress on that night, of all of the media outlets, out of everybody in the world who covered that particular speech, we were number 5 in the world with 250,000 folks watching live. And we didn't carry his speech. Bishop William Barber gave the State of Our Union, and on Tuesday night, we will do that again. We'll be live from 6 o'clock local time to midnight. We've got more than 60 folks lined up to speak, talking about what is the state of our union when it comes to health, education, labor, all the different categories. And so we'll be doing that again. And the reason that's important is because the nation's first black newspaper was Freedom's Journal. And they published on March 16, 1827, "We wish to plead our own cause, too long have others spoken for us." And so before coming out here, I was doing MS Now, and we were talking about white nationalism. And they were talking about, they kept saying that folk who support Trump, they're advancing Christian nationalism. And I said, Allie Velch is a good friend of mine. I said, no, Allie, I have to correct you. I said they are advancing an ideologically driven white right-wing Christian nationalism. And so the reason you have to always correct that is because when they say that they are advancing Christian nationalism, then what that phrase means, they're including all Christians. But those folks are not including all Christians. They're not even including all white Christians. They really only are focused on a very different number. That is a right-wing white Christian nationalism. They are advancing a slaveholder religion, which is different. And so I had to make the distinction. I said, no, we're going to call it what it is. And that's also why you have to have black-owned platforms, because when you do that, you are centering black people. We are not a part of a conversation or roundabout way, we are the center of the conversation, and that's what we do every single day. And so on my show network, we don't celebrate Black History Month because we do Black history every single day. I appreciated the young folks talking about Black Wall Street. When we launched the show, every week we actually provide time for Black-owned businesses. We actually then created our own online mall for Black-owned companies. And so when you go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, when you buy from those Black-owned companies, then you're also supporting the show. And so we use our platform in that way. Because, see, one of the things that a lot of us, frankly, if we really want to be honest, a lot of us really love and focus on white validation. I often said my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Yeah, I said it. I came up with the title, and I meant it. And I said, you know what? I said I might need to make my next book white validation, because a lot of us are fixated on that. There were people when I had my TV One show, there were people coming up to me and they said, man, it still happens now. They'll say, man, when you gonna get your show? I'm like, well, I'm on every day. They say, no. I know that show, but I mean a real show. I'm serious. This has happened all over the place. I mean a real show. I had a brother come up to me. He said, man, I really wish you would go on Abby Phillips' show. I was like, why? He said, because somebody got to call him out. I said, first of all, I have no interest of going on a show that I don't own. That somebody else is setting the agenda. And so, again, we are fixated oftentimes on that, and we are willing to give our eyeballs to other folks' stuff and then complain about not seeing or hearing about us when we literally have our own platforms that speak to us every single day. And so that's why we created the show on the network, and we've grown it, and we've got 6 other shows on the network, and so that's what it's all about. So it has been a fantastic 7 years. And the other thing is this here, there ain't no millionaires, billionaires cutting us checks. Out of all the entertainers and sports folks I know, only 3 have contributed to our show. Just 3. And we've been able to survive. We've had 37,179 donors, and that's folk who've been given $1, $5, $10, $25. And our fan base has contributed close to $5 million in the 7 years because they see the value in what we do. And so we practice collective economics. So I appreciate the folks who subscribe, the people who actually contribute. And here's the other thing. I tell folk, and I said it from the outset, I said, listen, you contribute, we're not sending you hat, cup, mug, umbrellas. I said, because swag costs money. I said, when you give is going into the show, for the show, we probably only had about 100 people who complained, well, you're going to send me something. But the other folk, they say, when I'm contributing, I know what I'm getting, and I'm getting the content, and I'm getting the knowledge and the information. And so that's why we've been able to do what we do. And last point, that's why we can be as independent, because no one controls my voice. I don't have, somebody calls the advertiser, they try to call my guys, they say, who can we talk to? Because he a little rough on us. And they were like, say, dog, ain't nobody to call. He said, he own it. And the guy was like, you want to say he own it? He own it 100%. I said, so on our flow chart, the only person above me is God. So I'm like, you can't call nobody to stop me from saying what I say. And if you don't like it, you might want to pray to God to see if he can stop me. But that's about it. And that's why owning is important, because we need to have folk who say what needs to be said. And that's absolutely vital. Let's get to the business at hand. If you have your Bible, open to 2 Samuel 23:11. This is one of my favorite scriptures because it really speaks to my spirit in a huge way. It says, next to him was Shammah, son of Agee the Hararite. When the Philistines banded together at a place where there was a field full of lentils, Israel's troops fled from them. But Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field. He defended it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. You repeat after me. God will give you what you need, but you must defend it. You can take a seat. We lost one of the most important figures of the 20th and 21st century on Tuesday when Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. passed away at the age of 84. We're talking about an international human rights figure. We're talking about someone who in 84 years accomplished many things. And for a lot of us, we really don't fully appreciate the work that Reverend Jackson did. And I think part of that is because many of us would see him, could touch him, could talk to him. And see, when you are a figure who rarely is seen and heard, there's a mystique that is around you. There's a mystique that is around you. And so when they come around, we're like, oh man, I mean, we haven't seen or heard that person. And so we can touch him, or, oh my God, can we get a picture? But Reverend Jackson was everywhere. You might walk out of church one day and he might be at somebody's house, some woman who was having an issue. He might be at something downtown. And so he was always somewhere. And so we were so familiar with him that I think oftentimes folk took it for granted when we would see him. And what always bothered me, we would be places and Reverend Jackson would be in the room, or Ambassador Andrew Young would be in the room, or some of our esteemed leaders would be in the room. And when they would announce they were in the room, we would give a polite applause. And that would offend me because you can't give polite applause when you've got true warriors who are in our presence and who are actually still with us. And so many times I would stand up when it was time for me to speak or to present, or if I was emceeing, or if I was getting an award, I would say, no, I can't allow y'all to sit here and give that polite applause with that person in our presence. And folk would sit here and go, oh, dang, they would all of a sudden change the disposition. And that always bothered me because the people who put it on the line for us to be where we are today, to do what we do, to shop where we shop, to eat where we eat, to work where we work, we cannot take for granted the battles that they had to fight to make that happen. And I think one of our great mistakes today is that we take so much of what we have for granted, as if there was not a period in American history where that simply was not allowed. The reality of what this country has done to us, what this country, when I say this country, I mean federal government, state government, county government, city government, school government, corporate America, church, every institution. There's been no people in the history of America that has been attacked, degraded, and they tried to destroy than people of African descent. Now, I know somebody may say, well, look what they did to the Native Americans. I understand that history. They can say, well, look what they did to the Chinese who helped build roads. I understand that history. They say, well, look what they did to the Japanese doing with internment camps in World War II. I understand that history. Well, look what happened when the Irish came and when Jewish folk came and all of that. I say, I understand all of that. But you cannot show me anywhere in American history where a group of people, from the moment They arrived on the shores of this country in 1619, have been under a vicious level of assault from that very day. You can go from 1619 to 1863, Emancipation Proclamation, the end of the Civil War in 1865, 12 years of Reconstruction, the Great Compromise of 1877 as a result of the 1876 election, leading to 92 years of Jim Crow. You could talk about Dred Scott decision in 1854, overturning the 1875 Civil Rights Law, the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson. You can go from 1875 to 1957, not having a single civil rights bill. You can look at all the efforts to pass an anti-lynching law, and that did not come about till just a few years ago. You can walk through 13 years of the Black Freedom Movement. You can go post the Black Freedom Movement to the white flight was taking place, the attacks on contracts. We can go on and on and on. We can talk about slave patrols leading into police departments. Again, there's been no group that's been attacked like black folk. When you look at mass media, when you look at the images and understanding where did Jim Crow even come from, that came from a play. When you talk about minstrel shows, when you talk about all the attacks on voting, the attacks on economics, we often think about lynchings in this country, and we say, well, that was because a lot of those cases, they were mad that some black man may have spoke to or whistled at a white woman. No, most of those lynchings were as a result of white folks being angry with black economics. They were angry at black success. These same white racists denied opportunities, froze us out, then got mad when we still made a way and were successful in spite of their racism. Now, you got to be a certain type of evil to stop us from getting jobs, getting hired, being able to open bank accounts, and then get mad when we figure out another way to still prosper in spite of your racism. That literally is American history. I saw a video last night where they estimate that the loss of black land in present day dollars is $326 billion. Black folks who fled the South because they were being threatened with being killed. How they used the law to take over black land with so-called air rights. Black inventions that were taken, white folks who have become multi-billionaires as a result. You can look at the movie The Banker. Here you had these two brilliant black men who were buying property. They could be the present-day Marriott and Hilton. The Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, his family made their billions from hotels. That could actually have been them, but they were denied the opportunities because they were simply black. And so then when all of this happens, then we have conversations where people say, well, I don't understand why y'all can't get it together. I don't understand why you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I sit there and go, so are you just wholly ignorant of every single thing that has actually happened? And then what they'll do is they'll hold up several African Americans who have made it. Well, there's Oprah, there's Robert Smith, and there's LeBron, there's Tiger. They'll start naming folk. And I'm sitting there going, no. You're trying to cherry pick as if you did not create this entire system that then will keep us from prospering. Look, I went to Texas A&M University, graduated in 1991. I was interning at KBTX, a local television station. And it's an unpaid internship, killing it. And so then all of a sudden, a part-time weekend sports anchor job becomes available. And I said, I'm going after it. Now, here's what's crazy. The 4 p.m. producer, the 5 p.m. producer, the 6 p.m. producer, the 10 o'clock producer, the sports director all said, oh, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. We absolutely should hire Roland for the job. See, but the news director was a white man named Jeff Braun. And let me be real clear, I call names. I call names. His name is Jeff Braun, B-R-A-U-N. So there was a reporter named Alice Brown. She took me on a walk, and Alice said, I just got to be honest, Jeff is not going to hire you. See, about 10 years earlier, Jeff Braun had a run-in with a black man who owned the radio station in Hearne, Texas, and because of that run-in, he made clear he wasn't going to hire nobody black. There were no black men at the station. The same station Tamron Hall worked at when she worked at KBTX, same thing. But see, Tamron was a black woman. Jeff was like, no, he ain't hiring no black man. And so I don't get the job. They actually hire one of my classmates. And nothing wrong against him, but he could not touch me. That's just facts are facts. Joe Namath said it ain't bragging if you can do it. So once it happened, I quit the internship and graduate. So this is 1990. Graduate in 1991. I'm at the Office of the American Statesman. As a county government reporter, I'm there. I then get promoted to, I was there with South Neighbors reporter, get promoted to county government reporter. And then I asked them that I wanted to be a part of the team covering the Republican National Convention in Houston. They said, well, we've already chosen the team. We've already allocated the budget. We won't have a hotel room. I said, y'all, that ain't no problem. My mom and daddy live there. I got a room. We good. See, I wasn't worried about a hotel room. I was looking at the opportunity of what I can do. And so we're there, and then we're standing outside the George Brown Convention Center getting credentials. And who do I happen to run into? Jeff Braun. And so he's all smile. How are things going? Great. Now, mind y'all, I graduated December 1991. This is August 1992. I've already been promoted twice in 7 months. Oh, you know I let them know. And so I've seen them a few other times, and yes, I was same way. Yeah, we doing well. And see, I know when he's sitting there at home like, I'm going to watch this Negro on CNN, ABC, all these places. And I remember I was doing an interview at Texas A&M, and one of the reporters, one of the guys like, Roland, he's like, man, you keep bringing that up. I said, because it happened. He said, but your career has turned out so great. I said, it was a white guy. I said, here's the mistake that you make. See, you think because I went beyond what he was stopping me from doing, that I should be happy. I said, the mistake that you make is, how much higher would I be if I wasn't denied that opportunity? I said, second, you are ignoring that opportunity carried an economic benefit. Remember, I was interning for free. This is a paid job. I said, so you are saying I should be happy today when economically I could be doing better had I had an earlier economic start then. See, that's what they try to do. They want to say, well, but you turned out great. It's all good now. I'm like, yeah, but that impacted what I was making then, what I could afford then. And so you want to say that because where I am now, I should be happy, and ignore when you denied me an opportunity, and it wasn't based upon merit because it was already established who was the best for the job. It was only denied because I was a black man. See, I'm like, I'm not going to let you forget what you actually did by denying me the opportunity. And see, even when they deny you the opportunity, when it's not even, but they don't even explicitly say it's because of race, then it still impacts you. Birmingham News, I interview with them. I'm graduating. I interview with 16 different editors. They vote, all 16 say we got to hire him. But see, in Alabama, they had a law that says that they could deny you a job because of your credit score. This was in 1991. Now, years later, we do a special at TV1 on credit. My producer says, that's not a whole show. I'm like, trust me, it is. He like, no, it's not. I said, it is. Plus, it's my show, and we doing it. When we do the show, he then goes, man, that's like a 4-part special. I said, I tried to tell you what it is, because he didn't understand how deep the issue of credit was. Now, let's be real clear. Credit scores are relatively new in American society. We only talk about the last 40 some odd years. Now, what was crazy is, again, the Birmingham News, the editor, he was so apologetic. He wanted to hire me. And I was like, that's fine. And my daddy was upset. My mama was upset. Other folk were upset. I'm like, y'all, we good. I'm going to get a job. But let's be real clear. I said, I know I'm going to rise. I said, and every time when I speak, especially when I talk in Alabama, I remind them that the Birmingham News will never be on my resume because of what they actually did. And I gave a speech in Birmingham. They were like, boy, hey, Roland, you going to bring it up again? Yes, going to bring it up again. Because see, what they want us to do, they want us to forget our history. And then when in telling our story, forget our history, so then they don't have to feel guilty about what somebody else did. Well, see, that ain't me. See, I am letting you off the hook. I'm not doing that. And see, you got folk right now who say, well, there's white guilt, and then all of a sudden you should not be focusing on those things. No. It's not white guilt. It's called American history, not his story. See, I can't let folk tell stories and ignore exactly what took place. I can't let folk on television and radio say things about our people, about this country, and act like other things didn't happen. Right now, you've got these crazy folk who are about to celebrate 250 years of American history. You've got the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon commander-in-chief take down a slavery exhibit in Philadelphia because he did not want it to be seen. They are literally doing the exact same thing on army bases. They restored the Jim Crow Confederate names. And see, they were so evil. In the case of Fort Bragg, they said, well, no, so we're not going to restore the name of the Confederate General Bragg. We're going to go find another soldier whose last name was Bragg and then put their name back on the base. So that's the games that they play. And so we just have to recognize exactly what is going on. You have the Secretary of Defense, grossly unqualified. Here he follows a retired 4-star general in Lloyd Austin, and we have an absolute fool who is more famous for the bottle than he is for doing anything in the military. He invites a paleo Confederate to pray at the Pentagon. This is a man, a preacher, who actually said that in slavery they were on strong biblical grounds for enslaving people of African descent. This is a person, he is a member of his denomination. You've got the same folk who are right now trying to get an avowed racist confirmed in a position. Here in Texas, you've got an ICE attorney in Dallas where they busted him. Texas Observer did, having a Twitter account where he is absolutely racist. He is misogynistic. He still has his job. They tried to push forward an individual who was busted in a chat who said that he had a Nazi streak. What we have right now in the United States of America is an individual who occupies the Oval Office who will willingly and knowingly allow racists to serve in their administration, and we as taxpayers are actually paying for it. What we are witnessing right now are white nationalists, white Christian nationalists, white right-wing Christian nationalists pray at the White House, not P-R-A-Y, P-R-E-Y, because they are preying on our people. These are the folk who claim to love Jesus, but the Jesus that they talk about ain't the same one that we talk about. These are the same folk who are removing black history books and removing books of Toni Morrison, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and so many others because they do not want children learning the real history of this country. They hate the 1619 Project. They hate when we talk about what actually happened. They remove from the website Jackie Robinson and Medgar Evers and what they dealt with being in the United States Army. We can go on and on and on. What their desire is, when they say make America great again, they really say make America when it was absolutely white. Make that again. They want them to be in control. They do not want us to be in control. They want to subjugate us as best they can. I call it slavery without shackles. That's what's going on right now. And the problem that I have is too many of us are moving and operating in this quiet, clueless nature, as if this thing is not going on. They are trying to cement their power for the next 50 to 100 years. And many of us are saying, well, you know what, nothing really we can do. My vote really don't count. That stuff don't matter. We're watching them try to defund Black America. They're attacking education institutions. They're attacking economic institutions. They're attacking health institutions. They're attacking all these institutions, and it's happening before our very eyes. And too many of us are unwilling to fight in this moment. Too many of us are saying, well, that's not really my fight. I had a prominent entertainer tell me, I just think at this moment we got to focus on our paper. I said, well, hold up. How can we focus on our paper when you have a federal contracting program that spends $700 billion a year, and they want to get rid of the DBE program, which is $37 billion. Under Biden-Harris in 2024, Black folks got $10 billion of those contracts, less than 2%, but it was the highest ever. I said, so if you want us to focus on paper, if they are getting rid of jobs in corporate America, not funding various events, then you're not getting government contracts. Now you come down to Texas, they got rid of the DBE hub here in Texas. And so if you go federal, state, they're going to try to go county and then city. I said, so if they're going to deny us government contracts and corporate contracts, I'm sorry, is there a third pool out there that I'm not quite familiar with? I said, it ain't as easy as say, let's just focus on our paper. There's a direct assault on everything Black happening right now, and I just feel as if too many Black folks are walking through this space as if, I love that scene from Scandal when my man says, you're running through a field of bombs going off, mistaking them for a field of daisies. That's happening right now. And our response has frankly been muted. The response of the church has been too quiet. We've got too many folk who are simply preaching on Sunday, doing Bible study on Wednesday, and ignoring Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But see, Dr. King talked about that in his book, Chaos or Community. Where do we go from here? When he actually said this, when he said that there are already structured forces in the Negro community that can serve as the basis for building a powerful united front. He says first the Negro Church, then he says the Negro Press, the Negro fraternities and sororities, and Negro professional associations. He said, but we must admit that these forces have never given their full resources to the cause of Negro liberation. He said there are still too many Negro churches that are so absorbed in a future good over yonder that they condition their members to adjust to the present evils over here. He said too many Negro newspapers have veered away from their traditional role as protest organs, agitated for social change, and have turned to the sensational and the conservative in place of the substantive and the militant. Too many Negro social and professional groups have degenerated into snobbishness and a preoccupation with frivolities and trivial activity. But the failures of the past must not be an excuse for the inaction of the present and the future. These groups must be mobilized and motivated. That's not me, that's Dr. King in the last book that he wrote before he was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. And so what he is saying then, and he's speaking to us now, the only way we can challenge what is happening when these structured forces that we have in our community actually commit themselves and their full power to changing what is going on. Which means that when we're talking about churches and fraternities and sororities and professional groups, we have all of this massive infrastructure in Black America, but the problem is we are too insular in our focus and we're not outward. There are too many churches that literally talk about a church without walls. No, these are churches with walls, with concrete around them. in barricades because they're so fixated on what's happening internally, and they're not focused on really what is happening in the community. I've said, look, I'm an alpha. I've said, and I'm also in Sigma Pi Phi, also with Masons. I said, how many of us could literally walk through black neighborhoods in our colors and folk not know who we are? I had a brother, he was there at the annual march of the lodge in D.C. Brother said, man, he's going to be involved. I said, stop, hold on. I said, I got a question. First of all, where are we marching? He said, what do you mean? I said, why are we marching? I said, why am I going to put on a black suit and some hard-bottom shoes and some white gloves and an apron and march? I said, why? Couldn't answer the question. When we have meetings, I always go, why are we meeting? Roland, we need you to, no. Why are we meeting? Man, can you come in? No. Why are we meeting? So we do lots of gatherings. We have lots of meetings. And we'll have food and drink, and we'll be in our colors. It'll be decorated and wonderful. And I'm sitting there the whole time like, why are we here? How long this going to take? What are we doing? What is the agenda? What's the target? How are we organizing and mobilizing? And then what ends up happening is we gather to simply set another date to gather again. We have MLK programs and Black History Month programs that simply become self-serving events, as opposed to, no, how are we creating an agenda so when we come back a year later, we can say, well, look, this is what we did in the previous 11 months from last year. And see, we got leadership who doesn't want to be challenged. And my whole deal is, listen, if you don't want to be challenged, it's not wise for you to come on my show. Because understand, I've always operated my career with a very simple belief. If you do good, I'm going to talk about you. If you do bad, I'm going to talk about you. At the end of the day, I'm going to talk about you. Because I believe in accountability. And what we're facing right now, Black America is yelling and screaming, who is leading us? Where are we going? And they're saying, what is the plan? I have been hearing that for so long, and especially since the inauguration. And folks have been like, where is it? And when you look to traditional civil rights groups, silence. When you look to a lot of churches, silence. And so they're like, well, no, we can't do that because, you see, we do that. I mean, look, they want us to protest, and if we get out there and protest and something happens, then he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. So therefore, they want to sit here and put us in jail. And so, no, we can't do that. Well, no, if we do that, I don't know, because, see, listen, folk going to lose their jobs. I have heard so many excuses as to why we can't do certain things. And I'm literally sitting here going, do you have any concept of history? Can you please tell me about Harriet Moore and her husband, where their house was bombed and they were killed on Christmas Day because they were registering black folks to vote? You are telling me about folk who knew the day they walked out of their house, their life could end? You telling me when 50,000 black people in Montgomery had a bus boycott that was led by kicked off by Joanne Robinson, and those folk did not understand what was at stake? When you had folk who lost jobs, who lost farms, who lost land, they put it all on the line for us to sit here right now. These are the people who fought to get the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act, the 68 Fair Housing Act, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, the Reconstruction Amendments. You mean to tell me whether it was Frederick Douglass or Martin Delany and Ida B. Wells Barnett and on and on and on, all the work that these folks did? They had courage, they had tenacity, they stood in the face of fear. Ida B. Wells had her office bombed twice. The reason you don't have a physical copy of her newspaper, because they were burned up. They put a bounty on this woman's head because she was writing about lynching. And you're telling me that in 2026, the most educated group of people of African descent with the most resources are literally a bunch of scared folk. I'm sorry, you cannot tell me you believe in Jesus Christ and God is governing you if you are walking with a spirit of fear. Every person alive today must understand that the next generation is going to hold every single one of us to account. They're going to say, in the moment of crisis, in the moment of attack, where were you in that very moment? And here it is in 2026. If we are here 30 years from now, quoting and naming the black folks who put it on the line 50 and 60 years ago, that means this generation has failed. That means this generation did not put anything on the line. What we did was we skipped a couple of generations. You have nieces and nephews and cousins right now looking at you saying, what you gonna do? Are you gonna say something? Are you going to do something? And see, part of the problem, if we really want to be honest, is that if you look at King's assassination in 68 as the marker, and then you come present day, what you had was in the, I call the post-civil rights movement, you had a whole generation of people. These were the people who kept us abreast of what was happening at City Hall. You talk about what's happening with the school board. There were folks who were always there, who knew the agenda, and they would tell us, well, this is what the county commissioner's doing. These were the folk who walked in neighborhoods or who were doing precinct blocks, and they reminded us this was going on. They had civic clubs and all these different things, and these are the folks who worked the polls, who were outside of the polls, passing stuff out. These are the whole generation of those folks. Those folks are doing two things now. They are retiring and becoming ancestors. My parents are 78, worked elections, ran phone banks, did all kind of stuff. And listen, they had 5 kids. I remember, because it was free labor for them, putting up yard signs and putting up posters, all kind of stuff like that, and working the polls, passing stuff out from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. And so, but guess, they 78, they tired. And I get they tired. But I am sick and tired of hearing, if you are 65 and under, and I use 65 because the reality is you about 7 or 8, so you have some recollection of the Black Freedom Movement. I'm be 58 in November, so I have none. I was born November 1468. So I would dare say, if you under 65, I am sick and tired of hearing, especially millennial or Gen Z or Gen Alpha and a Gen X talking about after Kamala lost, I'm tired. I'm like, what the hell are you tired about? What have you done where you are tired? I'm tired. We just gonna sit this out. We just resting. Black folk are catching hell in every part of America, and we talking about resting. I love dancing, and I love boots on the ground, but that ain't the boots on the ground that we need right now. Right now, we have to be recognized that we are in a battle for the future of Black America, and too many of us are resting. Too many of us are chilling. Too many of us are saying, no, this really ain't my fight. Okay, well, it really ain't my fight. What's going on with ICE? Let's be real clear. That's our fight, because trust me, they don't just want to deport all of them. They want to get rid of all of us. I'm being real clear. I'm being real clear what's going on. When you see what's happening again with contracts and education, all these different things, trust me, Project 2025, we made it clear. Black folk were at the center of Project 2025. Well, you see right now what's happening. They're trying to pass the SAVE Act. I don't understand how every preacher in Texas is not mobilizing their congregations to be kicking Ted Cruz and John Cornyn's butt, saying you might be right-wing MAGA, but don't you dare sign and support that bill. Because you got to understand, see, this is how they fool you. Oh, no. We should have voter ID. Okay, if y'all want voter ID, then why don't y'all simply pass the budget in Austin to say, we going to send every voter in Texas an ID that we pay for. No, they ain't doing that. No, they want you to say, no, you can use a passport or your birth certificate. I don't know what my birth certificate is, but y'all can understand it's the rules they play. So then when they say your birth certificate, then they say, well, no, not the ones you can get from the Bureau of Vital Statistics. No, we need the birth certificate with your feet on it and the raised seal. Y'all know most of us can't find that birth certificate. That thing been gone. But see, this is how they manipulate the rules because they don't want all of us voting. Why should you be here in Texas? There's no vote. There's no state in America that has more eligible black voters than Texas. Not Mississippi, not Maryland, not Virginia, but in Texas. But when we look at our turnout, the turnout is 52, 55%. We're not turning out. Why is Atlanta the city it is? Because they had Maynard Jackson, followed by Andrew Young, followed by Maynard Jackson, followed by Bill Campbell, followed by Shirley Franklin, followed by Kasim Reed, followed by Keisha Lance Bottoms, followed by Mayor Andre. We've had 2 black mayors, not back to back. It was an utter abomination after Sylvester Turner was no longer allowed to run that black folks did not use our power to put another black person in the mayor's office. All of the work that was done when it came to contracts and other efforts, those things are being wiped out because we did not follow up with that same thing. What I'm trying to tell you is there's no part of this America, no part of Texas, no part of Houston where we can be silent and on the sidelines. And see, it's right. And the reason I use this scripture is because what this lays out is here was a field of lentils. God gave them that land. But see, when they were in a battle, they said, well, you know what? We're just going to run past that field. It's not worth defending this field. But Shammah, one of David's mighty men, said, no, if God gave it to us, then I'm going to stand here and use both hands and fight for this land. And he sat there and struck all of them down. So because one person took a stand, they were able to maintain the field. And see, here's part of the problem. Part of the problem is lentils are virtually meaningless to a lot of us. They say, what? That's just a field of lentils. That is a meaningless field. But see, anybody who understands when you are in a war, if you take one piece of land, then they want another piece of land. And then another piece of land. We're seeing it happening with Ukraine and Russia. Zelensky is saying, no, I ain't trying to give up no pieces of land because y'all want to take all of the land. And that's what's happening right now. George Floyd was murdered 2020. That was the first time in American history you ever had a black-centered movement where a majority of Americans agreed with it. That had never in the history of America, not A. Philip Randolph, not Dr. King, never in the history of America was there a black-centered movement where a majority of Americans agreed with the movement. And what you begin to see all of a sudden corporations, 60, 70, 80, 100 billion in commitments. You begin to see changes in education, changes in all sort of places, changes in government. And you had a faction in this country saying, no, we can't have this. Because, see, they saw what was next. See, when you look at the first Reconstruction, which was Du Bois had it at 20 years, but I really have it at 1865 to 1877. Then you had the second Reconstruction, which really goes from Emmett Till's, really I say Brown versus Board of Education, but Emmett Till's lynching going through King's assassination. That's about 13, 14 years. When George Floyd happened, I was saying, y'all, if this is going to be the third Reconstruction, black folk, pay attention. We cannot allow them to short circuit this third Reconstruction. I said, because the history tells us that's what they always do. Even though the first Reconstruction was 1865 to 1877, after about 4 or 5 years, they were like, listen, we done enough of these black folks. Can we just move on? That's American history. Same thing happened, the Black Freedom Movement. And so what then happened? They said, no, we got to shut this down. First, they said, we have to completely attack Black Lives Matter. The attack took place in 2021. 2022, critical race theory. Now, y'all, I have worked at 14, 15 black media institutions. You can't get blacker than me in media. I had never in my life heard of critical race theory. Never, ever, nowhere. I was like, huh? That was a law school theory. But they said, no, we're going to group everything black and everything minority under CRT. What happened? They used CRT, massive turnout in 2022 midterm elections. They took over school districts in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas. And you know what they did? South Carolina started firing the superintendents of the year who were black. You had majority black towns. Black folks did not show up to vote. They took over the elections with small numbers of people voting, and then that's how they won. Now, the reason you had the election in Tarrant County a couple of weeks ago where the Democrat won is because he was running against a white woman, a conservative, who was one of the folk that they took over one of their school districts. They beat them back 2 years later. But they had targeted us in 2022. 2023, they attacked DEI. 2024, they attacked woke. What did you see? CRT, Black Lives Matter 2021, CRT in 22, DI in 23, woke in 2024. All of that was the result of the murder of George Floyd, because they saw white kids who were now reading history, not history. They saw Latino kids going, wait a minute, we hadn't heard of this history. Do you think all of a sudden, while they said, no, we got to start banning books. We got to start kicking this thing out. We got to stop having folks speak on college campuses. We got to start having Turning Point USA chapters in every high school in Texas. What they saw was America being now redefined with real history. And they said, we cannot have this continue. So we have to destroy the complete infrastructure to shut this down. And what we then did was participated in our own demise by not voting in 2022. And then a lot of folk making excuses in 2024. You literally had Simple Simon Negroes questioning whether Kamala Harris was black when she was running against an avowed racist. We were really having that conversation. Then you had these other faction of these Simple Simon Negroes yelling tether, or you ain't really from here, and I'm FBA. And I'm like, fool, we all got dropped off at different points on different places based upon where the boat ended up. So I'm like, that's silly. So we had folk who were caught up in all of that. All they were saying, well, we survived them the first time. We can survive them the second time. Then you had some folks say, well, we survived slavery. No, you didn't survive slavery. We ancestors survived slavery. I'm like, some of these weak fools, they could not survive losing Wi-Fi. And you talking about you survived slavery. Let's just be real honest what's going on. And so what I need us to understand, that there is a massive, systemic, focused, well-funded effort to take away and destroy everything that our ancestors fought for, died for, and that includes civil rights, economic rights. And so when I say they want to defund Black America, that is their objective, which means that you have to now make a decision whether you are willing to get in this fight to protect what they fought for and what God gave them as a result of their work, or are you going to be the generation to watch it disappear, and then the next generation will then look at you and say to mother and father and grandfather, where were you when this was going on? Because see, the fight, I could easily say, well, you know, I'm good with it. I'm in the income tax bracket. I'm all good. Give me my tax cut. But no, I do what I do every day because I got 9 nieces and 4 nephews. I do what I every day because my parents now have 2 great grandchildren. I do what I do today because I do not want to be in a situation where 30, 40, and 50 years from now, when they are saying in that moment in crisis, who was standing up fighting on behalf of our people, I want to be just like the folk in Nehemiah. When they name who helped build a portion of the gate, I want my name to be called. So you got to make a decision right now, whether you're going to be present or you're going to have some presence. You got to make a decision right now, whether you're willing to fight for our people, or you willing to make excuses because you're comfortable in your nice job, your nice car, your nice house, which, based upon your present economic circumstance, you may not have that if you get fired, laid off, or they change the terms of your loan. So if you ain't debt free, understand you can still come after you. This is a moment right now where we've got to have folk today invoking the name of the ancestors, but not just the name. I need you invoking the spirit of the ancestors and saying, I'm willing to put something on the line. Now, maybe you can't protest, but you can phone bank. Maybe you can't sit here and be on the front line, but you can fund something. Maybe you say, I ain't got no money, but you know what? I can pick the phone up. Maybe you can give somebody a ride to the polls. Maybe you can sit here and be engaged somehow. But every single person sitting in this room has something of value to contribute to what is going on. If Shema had the audacity to fight over a field of lentils, well, then you better fight for that school next door. If Shema had the audacity to fight for a field of lentils, well, then you better be fighting for the contracts. If Shema had the audacity to fight tooth and nail for a field of lentils, well, then you better fight for voting rights for the next generation. This is a moment that you got to wake up and get involved. No excuses. I don't want to hear nothing else. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your education. Every single one of us have a responsibility to be in this fight, and you better get some spirit. Like my frat brother, one of our founding jewels, Vertner Woodson Tandy, who said, we will fight like till hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.